Today we're going to talk about a commandment that kind of seems like the last one, but it's actually different, and I'll explain that to you. So just get ready. Trigger warning, this is Caffeinated Christianity. So, I'm an RD, which means I'm in charge of RAs in one dorm building. So I'm like the next step up on the pyramid of residence life here at Presbyterian College. And that's awesome, okay? This dorm room that I live in, I live alone, which is kind of fire. But the downside of that is the fact that right there, you can't see this off camera. You definitely can't see this off headphones. There's a doorway, which goes into the hallway. And then immediately outside of my door is the threshold that goes into the lobby of this dorm building. And there are about 250 people in this dorm building. So there is a constant noise battle right there. People cracking jokes, being loud, running up against my door. Can't stand it. Cannot stand it. Whoever designed the building obviously is not a real engineer, because the door to the lobby opens up directly into my doorway. And so people, I guess, want to try and feel skinny. So they open the door barely and try and slide through. And so their book bags run into my door, and I can't really stand it. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome to live on the first floor of a very localized dorm building alone. But the fact that people consistently make a ton of annoying noise offsets the perks some days of actually living here. There's a door that goes outside. I promise it's the loudest external door in the history of human civilization. And so there's just a constant noise somewhere in this dorm building. And you're thinking, Cooper, why don't you go to the library and do your homework? Cooper, why don't you go somewhere else and record this podcast? Well, because A, people would judge me. B, I consistently have to haul about 15 books around to do my work, which is annoying to do to the library. 3, it's raining cats and dogs today. And 4, I just don't really want to. I want to complain about a problem that I won't fix. So that's just kind of how it is. But I digress. Welcome to the next episode of Caffeinated Christianity, where the coffee is black and the opinions are unqualified. My name is Cooper Short. Caffeinated Christianity is a blog, podcast, and creative content website also with a YouTube page dedicated to practical Christianity from an evangelical worldview. We're trying to help believers become who God's called them to be. What we are talking about today is the second in a line of 10 commandments that God gives to the Israelites in Exodus chapter 20. But first, our verse of the episode. "O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker." Now, let me just go ahead and give you the official second commandment straight from Exodus chapter 20. "You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord, am a jealous God. I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments." Now, when I first read this, and when I've read this before, I've never really understood how this one and the first one are different. The first one says that you shall have no other gods before me, and this one says you shall not bow down to serve or worship carved images. Now, last week we talked about the historical context of it was kind of referencing pagan idols, which are literally like tiny little figurines, could have been. And we were talking about basically the comparison of those to college football, to television, to TV shows, to music, to relationships, to basically anything that you want to idolize in front of God. We talked about last week how the first commandment means do not be an idolater. So how necessarily is this one different? It says don't make for yourself a carved image, and it says not to worship them. How are those things different? Well, the historical context for the Israelites would have been right in line with this kind of thinking. We can't really piecemeal this from the outset in our Western context because we're not really wired to view the world as such. But it was customary of many people around the Israelites and many people of the ancient Near East or Middle East or Far East, whatever you want to call it, that's completely up to you, to physically worship an idol made of something. An example of this from the Bible among many is Daniel chapter 3, how King Nebuchadnezzar makes a gold image. He forces everybody to bow down and worship it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego decide we're not doing that crap, and they are thrown into the fiery furnace for that. The fire is so hot that the guys that throw them in die from the flames. and they survive the fire. 3 of them go in, 4 of them are seen in the fire, 3 of them come out. Ostensibly, that would be Jesus Christ in the fire with them, or God at the very least. But this is not something we're used to in the West. We're not used to having little gold figurines that we worship. Some people who live in the West do this, but it is not a Western Protestant Anglo-American concept to actually physically worship idols. The closest thing we could get to would be like crucifixes in Catholicism, but for the most part, we don't really make a carven image of anything, of any kind of animal, and then bow down and worship it. We don't really do that here. But here is what I think the commandment is actually saying. Now, this is where we trail off into Cooper's brain based on research. I'm not saying that God endorses this viewpoint. I could be way off, so take it for what it's worth. I'm not ordained. Here's what I think the second commandment is saying, is don't make God in the image of creation, or don't make God in your own image. The tendency is to make God like we want him to be. The tendency is to make God like things we've seen, things we know, things we enjoy. And that's what this commandment is calling us not to do. The tendency is to make God what we want him to be, and we can't do that because God is holy, which means set apart. 1 Samuel 2:2, there is none holy like the Lord. There is none besides you. There is no rock like our God. Exodus 15:11, who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? That is a rhetorical question. The answer is no one. There is no one like God. We cannot make God in our image or the image of creation because, for one, he created things in his image. So you can't really reverse that. That's our tendency to do that. I was talking to a friend of mine recently about the nature of politics and about how politics are very, very hostile to people who pretty much have any sort of opinion literally at all. Right, left, center, everybody attacks everybody. It's basically an all-out civil war every time a conversation happens. You say Donald Trump, people start to cry. You say Hillary Clinton, people start to throw things. It's unbelievable. And he was asking me kind of what's my take on that, and I don't really necessarily have one specifically, but the one thing that I did say that I do wholeheartedly stand by is the fact that we're shocked as Christians in the United States because politics doesn't really seem to mesh real well with faith in several places, and that's because politics is a man-made institution designed by men for men, so naturally it would be broken. And see, that's the essence of what this commandment is really getting at, is you cannot create things in man's image, because you cannot create God in man's image, because God is holy and set apart and we are not. Psalm 51:5, we are by nature sinners, and by virtue of that sin we deserve hell and eternal separation from the holy and righteous creator God of the universe. And you hear that noise, that's someone's dog in the hallway. We are by nature sinners. We cannot make God in our image because we are a broken image. We are the imperfect creation that was created perfectly, that was ruled imperfect due to sin. God is a jealous God. You shall not bow down to serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. God created us to have a relationship with us. Okay? A perfect example of this is John chapter 3, the story of the Samaritan woman. God created us to have a relationship with us. He does not need us. God does not need me. He does not need you. He does not need my little sister. He does not need us, but he wants us. God doesn't need us, but he wants us. He only loves us because he wants to. There is no reason for him to love me because I'm a dirty, rotten sinner. I continue to commit sin. I will continue to commit sin. I am broken by nature. He chooses to love me anyways because he wants to, because he created me. That is the true essence of agape, unconditional love. He only loves me because he wants to. Apart from that, there's no reason to love me, yet he chooses to. So therefore, I cannot make things in my image. I can only worship a God that is made in his image, and the only person that is him is him. God is calling us not to create idols and gods to worship in our image because we are not holy and set apart. He is holy and righteous and perfect and set apart. That's kind of my takeaway from the second commandment. If that is completely biblically incorrect, please tie me up and stone me. My Jesus moment of the episode is not a moment, it is rather a person. I don't know if he'll watch / listen / ever hear about this, but I have a friend from home. We go to church together. We went to high school together naturally because he's from home, and his name is Andrew Baber. We call him Baber. And when I was in high school, I was not super close to Baber. We were pretty decent friends, but he and I were not really super mega close friends. And ever since the end of high school, he has been a huge encouragement to me. Baber works for Young Life out of Wingate University. Well, he works for Young Life and he attends Wingate University. Sam Howell, who's the quarterback of UNC Chapel Hill, was actually one of his Young Life kids, which is kind of cool. But Baber has been a huge encouragement to me since the end of high school. He came a couple weekends ago, spent the weekend with me. We played disc golf together, he and I and a friend of mine from school named Parker, who's the place kicker for the football team. Baber's just been a huge encouragement to me. He's really kept up with me. He's really kept solid dialogue with me, as have other people, but he's just been a big encouragement to me. He asks about ministry. We talk about ministry. He's a believer. He's just a quality person. He's a quality human being. He's super reliable. He's good to me. He's good to my family, and he's just a good person. And I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's been a huge encouragement to me the last few years. And I'm glad that we've actually gotten closer through doing things like playing disc golf these last few years. And I regret that I was never better friends with him in high school because he would have made me a better person, because by virtue of being friends with him, he has done so. Your CHH song of the episode is Smooth Operator by Paris Chariz. That is Parris space Chariz. For the longest time, I called him Paris Chariz, and that made me sound like an idiot. He came out with this song last Friday, and I'm not going to lie, it's flames. He's a very talented person. It's a very good song. Pretty unique instrumental. He's kind of new to CHH fandom largely because he hasn't gained larger prominence until recently, especially with this summer's Reach Records Summer 19 project. But he's actually been making music for a long time. I'm not going to say a long time listener. I've been listening to Paris Chariz for about 3 years now. So I'm kind of behind his curve in terms of the length of his career. But he's solid. Solid guy, solid artist, makes solid music, really, really good stuff, really unique, and just one of those guys that nobody's like him. Something I really enjoy about Christian rappers is how a lot of them are very unique. No Big Deal, who's my favorite artist, is definitely his own artist. I would say Paris Chariz is right in line with that. He's definitely his own artist, which is solid, quality stuff. So with that, I say thanks for tuning in. Of course, I'll reimburse you for the brain cells you've spent on this video and or audio podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CaffChrist. You can check out our website, CaffChrist.com. It's pretty simple. Know Christ, reflect Christ. John 1:5, hate sin, love sinners. And remember and don't ever forget that the battle, it's already won, dog.
50 souls.
Outie.